All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the world of elite football. Specifically, we're looking at some research on how these teams cultivate that almost superhuman resilience. We've got a great study to work with today from BMC Psychology, published just this year by Erkin Karail, Ilhan Adelaglari, and Ender Senel.
Interesting stuff, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Er,
And it really gets to the heart of what separates the teams that crumble under pressure for those that just keep bouncing back. We're talking about the kind of resilience that can win championships.
right, exactly. And this study zeroes in on the inner workings of elite Turkish football teams, exploring the relationship between the coach and the athletes, the leadership style, and how those factors influence the team's overall resilience. And they had a pretty solid sample size, too, 210 elite players.
Wow, that's impressive. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with the basics. When we talk about team resilience in this context, what exactly do we mean?
Yeah, good point. Well, in simple terms, it's that ability to withstand setbacks, to overcome challenges, and then, get back on track and continue pursuing those goals. And in the high-pressure environment of elite sports, this can make or break a season.
It's that mental toughness, the ability to handle those intense moments, those tough losses, without losing sight of the bigger picture. So how did the researchers approach this? Where did they even begin?
Well, they started by looking at the coach-athlete relationship, really digging into how that bond, that connection, impacts the team's perception of its own resilience.
That's interesting. So it's not just about having a good coach. It's about having a coach who can connect with their players on a deeper level.
It seems that way, yeah. The study found that players who felt a strong connection with their coach, like they were understood, valued, and supported, they were much more likely to view their teams as resilient.
That makes a lot of sense to me. You'd think a coach who creates that kind of environment, that sense of trust, would naturally foster a more resilient team.
Yeah, I'd agree. But of course, there's more to it than just that.
Oh, I bet. I'm sure there are other layers at play here. So what else did the researchers look at?
Well, next, they dove into the coach's leadership style, specifically focusing on something called transformational leadership.
Transformational leadership. I've heard that term before, but I'm not sure I could give you a definition.
Yeah, it's a popular one these days. It's basically a leadership style that focuses on inspiring a shared vision, providing individualized support, encouraging intellectual stimulation, and setting high-performance expectations.
Okay, so it's not just about barking orders and demanding results. It's about motivating and empowering your team to reach their full potential.
Exactly. But here's where things get really interesting. The researchers found that while all of those aspects of transformational leadership are important, only one emerged as a significant factor in this study. Only high-performance expectations directly contributed to the team's resilience.
Wait, so setting high expectations is even more important than things like building relationships or providing support.
Well, it's not that those other things aren't important, but the data suggests that setting high, yet achievable expectations had a more direct impact on resilience, even if the coach wasn't necessarily strong in those other areas of transformational leadership.
So a coach who pushes their players to be their best, even if they're not the most nurturing or inspiring leader, is still going to build a more resilient team. That's surprising.
It is interesting, isn't it? But think about it this way. When someone sets a high bar for you, it can be incredibly motivating. It tells you they believe in your potential, even if you don't quite see it yourself yet.
Oh, I see what you mean. It's about instilling that belief, that confidence that allows you to push through those tough moments. But how does that translate into actual resilience on the field?
It comes down to self-efficacy. When a coach sets a challenging goal and expresses confidence that you can reach it, it boosts your own belief in your ability to succeed. And that self-efficacy is a key ingredient in resilience.
So it's like a chain reaction. High expectations lead to greater self-belief, which then leads to a more resilient team.
Exactly. When players believe in themselves, they're more likely to bounce back from setbacks, take risks, and ultimately achieve greater success.
This is fascinating stuff. So are we saying that setting the bar high is the secret sauce to unlocking a team's true potential?
Well, it's not quite that simple. It's not just about setting any old high expectation. There's a nuance to it.
I bet. I can't imagine just throwing out some impossible goal and expecting magic to happen.
You're right. It has to be the right kind of high expectation.
Okay, so what makes a high expectation the right kind of high expectation? I'm hooked.
Well, that's what we'll dig into next. We'll explore how coaches can strike that delicate balance between pushing their players and supporting them, setting those expectations that inspire growth without overwhelming them.
Sounds good. I'm ready to hear more.
So we left off talking about this idea of setting the right kind of high expectation. It's not just about setting any ambitious goal. It's got to be tailored to what the team can actually achieve.
Right. Like, you can't just tell a group of rookies to go win the championship and expect them to magically transform into seasoned pros.
Yeah, exactly. It's about understanding your team, where they're at, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then setting those expectations that push them, but not so far that they break. It's about that sweet spot between challenge and support.
So it's kind of like if you were training for a marathon. You wouldn't expect to run 26 miles on your first day.
Right. You'd gradually increase your mileage, build up your endurance over time with the right support and guidance.
Exactly. And along the way, you'd celebrate those smaller milestones. Like, okay, I ran 5 miles today. That's progress.
Yes. Celebrating those small victories is so important. It builds momentum, reinforces that belief that you're moving in the right direction.
And it's not just about setting the goal, right? It's about communicating it effectively, explaining why it matters, how it fits into the bigger picture, and what specific steps they can take to get there.
Absolutely. It's about painting a clear picture of success. You need to equip them with the tools and strategies, not just tell them to go figure it out.
Right. It's that whole transformational leadership thing again, isn't it? Inspiring, guiding, not just commanding.
Exactly. It's about helping them see how their individual efforts contribute to that shared goal.
And I'd imagine feedback is crucial throughout this whole process,
Mhm.
not just setting the expectation and then leaving them to it, right?
Definitely. Regular, constructive feedback. It's like having a roadmap and a compass, helping them track their progress, see where they can improve, and stay on course.
It's like you're constantly adjusting the sails, making sure you're catching the right wind to reach that destination.
I like that analogy. And when it comes to feedback, it's about recognizing effort, acknowledging growth, and then providing specific, actionable guidance on how to take things to the next level.
It's all connected, isn't it? The strong coach-athlete bond, the high expectations, the clear communication, the constant feedback. It's like a recipe for success.
It is, but it's important to remember that the study was focused on, elite football players in Turkey.
Right, right. So while these principles might apply across different contexts, there's always going to be nuances, cultural factors, and all that.
Absolutely. And there's no magic formula. It's about understanding your specific team and adapting your approach to meet their unique needs.
So what are some of the broader takeaways? What can our listener, who might not be coaching a professional football team, apply to their own teams?
One big thing is that it's not just about the coach, right? It's about building a whole team culture that values resilience, where everyone feels comfortable pushing their limits, supporting each other.
Yeah, it's about creating that environment where setbacks aren't seen as failures, but as opportunities to learn and grow.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that coach-athlete relationship, that foundation of trust. Because when a coach can create that kind of environment, they become so much more than just a coach.
They become a mentor, a guide, someone who really invests in the growth of each individual, not just the team as a whole.
Precisely. And, this research really highlights the impact of those kinds of relationships on an individual's development.
It's powerful stuff. We're not just talking about winning football games here. We're talking about building life skills.
Yeah.
And while this study focuses on elite athletes, I feel like there's a lot here that applies to any team in any field.
Absolutely. Business, academics, even just personal relationships.
It's all about creating that space for growth.
It is. And recognizing that resilience isn't just about bouncing back. It's about using those setbacks as stepping stones to reach even greater heights.
This has been an incredible deep dive so far, and I know our listeners are probably eager to hear about how to actually put all of this into practice.
Yeah, let's get into that. There's a lot of different approaches we can explore.
Okay, so we've talked about the theory, the whys, and the hows of resilience. But I think our listeners are probably itching to know, how do you actually put this into practice? What are some tangible things coaches or even just team leaders in general can do?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
Well, first off, I think it starts with communication, like really fostering that open and honest communication,
Right.
where players feel comfortable sharing their concerns, even admitting mistakes.
Oh, yeah, that makes total sense. If you can create that safe space where people aren't afraid to speak up, it can really prevent those small issues from becoming big problems.
Right. Because if you don't have that open communication, things can fester, and then you're dealing with a whole different beast. But beyond that, I think it's crucial to create that sense of shared purpose, make everyone feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves.
Oh, I love that. It's like that feeling of belonging, that sense of unity that can really get you through those tough moments. How do you actually foster that as a coach?
Well, one way is to involve the team in the decision-making process, like get their input when setting goals or even coming up with strategies. When people feel like they have a voice, they're more likely to buy in.
It's about giving them ownership,
Right.
making them feel like they're not just pawns in someone else's game.
Exactly. And then going back to what we discussed before, remembering to celebrate those small victories along the way.
Oh, yeah. It's all about that positive reinforcement. Recognizing those wins, no matter how small, can have a huge impact on morale and motivation.
And when those inevitable setbacks happen, because let's face it, they always do, it's about how you frame it.
You mean turning those losses into learning opportunities?
Exactly. Help them analyze what went wrong, identify areas for improvement. Instead of dwelling on the negative, focus on how to grow from it.
It's all about shifting that perspective, right? Finding the silver lining, even in defeat.
And that's where a coach's or a leader's, transformational leadership skills are so vital, providing guidance, offering support, and really helping the team process those setbacks and come out stronger on the other side.
It's like being a resilience architect, building that mental and emotional framework that can withstand any storm.
Well said. And remember, this study by Cariel, Adelaglari, and Sanel, it really emphasizes that it's not just a one-man show, it's a team effort. Everyone needs to buy into this culture of resilience.
Yeah, the coach can set the stage, but the players have to be willing to step onto it, embrace the challenges, and push themselves to grow.
Right. It's a collaborative process. And, while this specific research focused on elite football, the principles we've discussed today, they really apply across the board.
Absolutely, whether you're leading a team in a corporate setting, a classroom, even just in your personal life, these ideas about building resilience, they can make a real difference. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah. And, at the end of the day, it's about recognizing that setbacks are a part of life. They're going to happen. But it's not about letting those setbacks define you. It's about learning, adapting, and becoming stronger because of them.
And that's a message worth sharing. So to our listeners, next time you're facing a challenge, remember those key takeaways we've talked about today. Set those high expectations, communicate openly, celebrate those small victories, and most importantly, believe in your team's ability to overcome any obstacle.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So until next time, keep pushing forward, keep learning, and remember, you've got this.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Okay.